All right, let's get this party started. Today we got part one of our GSD podcast. What is up, my peeps? Joshua Smith here with another GSD podcast where I interview top entrepreneurs, top fitness and health professionals, and people that straight up dominate their space. These are people that do not accept mediocrity. Instead, they have clarity on exactly what they want in life. They get their hustle muscle on and they take massive action and create their dreams into reality. So real quick, I need a huge favor from you guys. In order for me to continue to bring this amazing content, these amazing interviews to you that are packed with massive value, massive information, and bring them to you free, which is my goal, my vision here at all times, I have two quick favors that I need you to do. So number one, if you have not done so already, go to www.joshuasmithgsd.com and subscribe to our email list. This way you'll automatically receive these interviews automatically via email, other awesome content that we're sending out. Don't worry, you won't be spammed. I hate spam too. From there, you can connect with us on social media, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, all of that fun stuff. So lastly, the last favor, if you're listening on iTunes or Stitcher, and if you're not, please just do me a favor and go on there. It only takes a second, but go on there. Leave us a 5-star rating, a 5-star review, throw a positive review, and then give us a 5-star rating. And again, I know that you're busy, but I greatly appreciate you guys taking just a couple minutes out of your busy day to go out there and do this. This helps our ratings, helps us get out there, get our message on a bigger level, and again, allows me to continue to do these for free for all of our awesome listeners. So, okay, enough with that. Today, I'm absolutely stoked for our guest to be on. This is a guy that absolutely dominates his space, and is absolutely brilliant at his craft. This is a guy that just a few years ago had zero money in the bank. Bank's accounts were froze, and by sheer hustle and determination, he turned his business and his life around and grew this multi-million-dollar organization. So make sure that you turn off all your distractions, turn off your cell phones. You guys just be engaged, listen. This is information and knowledge you're not going to get from anywhere else. And these are the top guys on the planet, what they do. So our guest today is the owner of the sixth division, which specializes in coaching and teaching business owners how to use Infusionsoft and become successful with the system, become more successful business owners. So again, I'm stoked and honored to have on our guest, Brad Martineau, on the show. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you. Super excited to be here.
Yeah, man, it's an honor. I know how busy you are, and I greatly appreciate you taking that time, dude. And then before we kind of go in, I've got so many questions for you in this interview, man. But before we kind of go into, what's going on today and marketing and messaging and a lot of different things there, let's kind of talk about what you did, like what led you into entrepreneurship. At what point did you decide that you wanted to go out there and start a business, and really what journey led you to the sixth division?
All right. Okay, this will be a fun ride. You guys can all have fun at my expense. So I would call myself, when I started off my path into entrepreneurship, I started off as what I call an unwilling entrepreneur. I have this drive and this passion from a young age. I'm going to go make my own thing happen. That's just not the way it came, which is ironic because my dad was an attorney that ran his own practice for the entire time I was growing up. As far as I remember, he was his own boss. But what I didn't realize early on in we'll call it my career, even though I hate that word, but early on in my career, I didn't realize is deep inside, I was an entrepreneur. I just hadn't consciously realized it yet. So I started off at the University of Phoenix as an admissions counselor, telling people that they should go to school online and they'll improve their career or whatever. And I lasted there. It was for a myriad of reasons. I was young. I was like in my early 20s, so maturity had not necessarily set in. It's debatable whether it has yet to this date. But for a myriad of reasons, that I could have not probably, but I know that I could have changed had I been more mature. I didn't like it. It was soul-sucking for me, and I'm aware of the fact that it has a lot to do with me at that point. But it was a place that I just got up and I went to work and I hated it. And so eventually, I was there for 2.5 years, which doesn't make sense. If you hate some place, you should just leave. But I stayed there for 2.5 years, and then I got a call from my brothers, and they had started this really small company. They had 6 employees. One of them was leaving, and they needed somebody to come in and do technical support for this new thing called. They were doing a CRM. I had no idea what CRM was. This is back in 2004. but I was like, look, anything to get out of here. So I said, so how much are you paying? I think I was crushing it then at the University of Phoenix. I was making like $35,000 a year. Um, and they said, well, we can pay you like 28. And I'm like, oh, well, that's less money. Okay, but I got full benefits, right? Because I have full benefits at University of Phoenix. They said, no, we don't have any. We don't make enough money to pay benefits. And so I did what any logical person would do in that situation. I took I took the job. So I took less money, and I had kids at that point. I was married and had kids. Had less money, no benefits, and it was the greatest. Literally, it was one. Like everybody has those major turning points in their life. This was one of them because it set me on the path. It wasn't the end all be all, but it set me on the path for me to understand and discover what entrepreneurship was about, and really to find myself as an entrepreneur. So I was the sixth employee there. I ran the entire support team. I hired support reps. I built up the support team. I shifted over and started the implementation specific team as we started to just do implementation, and then I ended up in product management, which is a fancy term that says my job was to work with customers, figure out what they want in the software, talk with the executive team, figure out where they want their product to go, and then work with developers to actually build the product. So I got a front row seat to how business can work and how it cannot work because I was working with customers in and out all the time. I got a front row seat to what can be built with technology because I was working, like literally I was writing lines of code and I knew how to read, I could talk with developers, I understood the database structure. I was in that role. And so I got this interesting blend of the business application and then the nuts and bolts of the software. And I've come to realize that I think that I was created for the purpose of matching those two things together. So I was in heaven. But I was still not operating true to who I was. I was an employee and I was comfortable with that paycheck. Well, fast forward about 6 or 7 years, I'm rocking in product management, and Infusionsoft hit. The company was called Infusionsoft. I don't know if I mentioned that, but they hit a couple of rough months, and they as a proactive measure, they ended up laying off 10% of the company. This was back in 2010, March of 2010. They laid off 10% of the company so that they could do some severance packages and stuff because they were starting to hit some tight spots, and I was included in that. I like to tell people I got fired because it's a little bit more dramatic, but the reality is I just got laid off with a bunch of other people. And so I left, and I'm really good at putting on a great face. So I left like, oh, it'll be good. I can go make my money. I got this figured out. And the fact of the matter is that inside I was freaking scared out of my mind. My brothers, I'll never forget it. I don't remember what day it was actually, but I'll never forget what happened. So they called. So I guess I should back up. Infusionsoft was started, I think I mentioned this, but by my brothers and my brother-in-law. They're the three founders. So my brothers called me at about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they called like 3 or 4 times because when I go to sleep, I go to sleep. And finally, my wife woke up, answered the phone, and she woke me up and said, hey, your brothers called. They're coming over, but they didn't say what they were coming over for. So I'm like, well, that's weird. And I'm kind of half awake. And at the time, my parents were living out of the country, like in Puerto Rico or somewhere. And so she's like, do you think something's wrong with your parents? I mean, like why would my brothers be coming over at 2 o'clock in the morning? I'm not like a bad guy, so there was no intervention going on or anything. So they came over, and they wanted to, before I came in the next day and found out with the group, they wanted to come over and tell me. And so I still remember they left, and I played the good, strong face, like, yeah, I'll be, like, don't worry about it, man. Like, I feel worse for you because you've got to be the one driving over here and telling me this. And then I'm like, all right, I'll just go back to sleep, and then I didn't go back to sleep. So from about 2 o'clock on, I stayed up. I went in, I played all the good face, and the fact is for the next 18 months, I basically operated out of complete fear. So I didn't know what to do. I didn't really have any clear passion. So what I said is, well, I know Infusionsoft really well, which is true. There wasn't anybody on the planet that knew it better than I did at that point. So I'll go do some consulting. Well, I started doing that. I was doing freelance consulting. I started doing that and realized really quickly that there were 2 problems with it. One, I need to be building something. Like, I can't just do this, hey, I'll do a project, and then I'll do another project. Like, I've got to be part of building something. And 2, I don't work on my own. I want to be around people. I want to help people grow. I want to be involved with a team. So after about 6 months, I just stopped doing consulting work. And there's this really funny thing that happens when you stop working. You stop getting money. And there's another funny thing that happens when you stop getting money. Your bank accounts start to go down, right? So I got to a point at the end of 2010 where I was like, I should probably start doing something. And so we were coming around to Infusionsoft's big user conference. And my idea was, well, I'm going to create a membership site, and I'll just sell this low-dollar ticket thing to a bunch of people, and it will solve all my problems. So I go to InfusionCon, and I sell this thing from stage, and there were maybe 320 people in the room. I sold about 85 people into it, which in hindsight is like, dude, that's money. You keep going with that. Me, still operating out of fear and not knowing what I was doing. Did nothing to market it. I did start to deliver the content and people really liked it, but I didn't really do anything to market it. So that slowly started to fizzle away because my mindset at that point was, oh, well, it's only like $4,000 a month. That's not enough to pay my bills. So this clearly isn't going to work. As if I'm going to create an entire business model off of one pitch to 320 people, and that's going to solve all my problems, right? So that kind of fizzled away, and ultimately it got to a point where my now business partner, I'm going to fast track through a lot of details, but my now business partner contacted me and recruited me to go work at a company that does what we do, but they do it for enterprise companies. So big companies, hundreds of employees, and I went to that company. They're here in Scottsdale, Arizona, and I lasted there for 3 weeks, literally from the day that I started to the day that I left, 3 weeks. And the reason why, the work was fine. It was the same work, but again, I started to discover, just like I had discovered before about like I got to work with people, I got to be creating something. I realized I really like working with entrepreneurs. I was in the wrong E. I like entrepreneurs, not so much enterprise. So I quit and I convinced my business partner Dave to come with me, and we started Sixth Division. This was about 3.5 years ago. And so we started. That was about November of 2011. We had a couple of people that were kind of working with us. We sold some stuff, just enough to pay them. We didn't take any money out for like 6 months, right? So we roll into Infusionsoft's user conference called Icon. This was 3 years ago in March. In fact, I don't know what day the conference was, but like literally it could be today, 3 years ago. We roll in, and just before this conference, we had moved to a new office space, the one we're in now. We had signed a 3-year personally guaranteed lease because that makes sense when you're not making any money. And then we had also committed 25 or 30 grand to a sponsorship to Infusionsoft to sponsor this user conference. Again, also makes a lot of sense when you're making no money. So we roll into the conference, and our sponsorship allowed us to sell the second night of the conference. And on the second day, and you alluded to this before, but on the second day of the conference, I woke up and I had email alerts from my bank accounts that all of my accounts were overdrawn, personal and business. So that was a very reassuring thought that morning. Well, I hope we sell something in that, because if not, I'm kind of sort of screwed. And we did. So we went on stage that night and we sold, and we did really, really well. That was the very end of March. And from there through the end of the year, we did just over $1 million in sales in our first year. And it's not lost on me that that is a feat that the majority of small businesses never get to. So I feel extremely blessed to do that. But that year also sucked. So just in case somebody thinks that making $1 million is like a walk in the park, it literally was like I traveled. I don't even know how many times I traveled, but if I thought that if there was an event where I thought there was somebody who might be thinking about using Infusionsoft, we were there. So we traveled a ton. We had clients coming out every single week, and we'd spend like literally 2 days one-on-one, 100% focused on the client. Then we turned around on the third day, like on a Wednesday, and we try and do some sales and some marketing. And then we turn around and realize we got to like keep QuickBooks up to date. And then we turn around and realize we got to like clean the like everything that goes on with running a business, right? We were trying to squeeze all that crap in. And from April through September, we had 5 or 6 clients that came out to our office every single week. And there were a couple of weeks where we did it twice a week. So that year was crazy. To the extent that the next year, rolling into 2013, we said, look, initially we said, hey, we want to double. And then we're like, wait a minute, that's stupid. Let's step back a second. What if we did the same amount in revenue, but we just cut our schedule in half? And that's what our goal was. We actually wanted to do $1 more or a penny more, but we wanted to cut our schedule in half. And we were able to do that. We ended up kind of gutting a lot of our team and getting our team cleaned up. And now we're, and then we wrapped up. That was 2013. 2014, we continued to iterate and improve on that. And we finished up, like you said, we finished up multi-million-dollar company. We spun off a second company that's a software company off of our first company. And now we're sitting in a pretty good position where we have the ability to make an impact and actually go help people. We kind of made it through that grind. So that's kind of the history of where I started as this unwilling entrepreneur through to being stupid and losing all my money to we're in a good spot. We're not, pajama rich, but we're in a good spot. We're having an impact, and we're having a freaking great time.
Yeah, that's a crazy, crazy journey, man. And now when you talk about working at the University of Phoenix, and when you're working at Infusionsoft as well, deep down you always knew that you needed to be an entrepreneur, but you didn't know it, kind of, right? So like, what were some of those signs? Like, what was going on internally? I mean, at that point, was it those internal conversations of, oh, I should be out there doing this because I mean, were you just seeing the flaws and then having like a vision on your own of doing this other stuff? I mean, what was this kind of internal conversation that you were having?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the University of Phoenix, there was an experience that looking back, I understood. And the key here is that most of these experiences, for anyone that's listening, most of these experiences that you'll notice, you'll notice them as you look back at them. You'll rarely notice them while you're in them. So I got there. I'd been there like a week, and we had a group meeting. I got hired by my manager, but a group meeting. My manager wasn't there, and it was a team. There were multiple teams, and the director of kind of these multiple teams was leading. What they were talking about is doing follow-up and how to get more people to register, and and they were talking about like about sending out a pamphlet or the way that we send out a pamphlet or something. And I raised my hand because the way they were talking about doing it just seemed stupid. And there was a little bit of hesitancy, like I'm the new guy, so maybe I shouldn't know any better. I'm like, hey, what if we just did this? And they were like, oh, hey, that's a good idea. Here's how you could do that. And then like, who are you? And nobody knew who I was because my manager hadn't told anybody. Like nobody on my team even knew who I was. So I got introduced to my team when my manager wasn't there. But what I realized when I was looking back is, and ultimately what frustrated me at the University of Phoenix is there were more opportunities like that where I'm looking at something, I know what they're wanting me to do in my role, and I'm looking at the process that they're forcing me to use to do it, and it was just stupid. Like it didn't make sense. It didn't serve the end goal that I was trying to get to, and it was extremely frustrating. So in terms of what are the signs that you can see, one sign, then I'll talk about what it was like at Infusionsoft, but one of the signs is if you're looking at stuff like you have an objective in the role that you're in, and you want to exceed and you want to do well. You're going to be constantly pushing to progress and to learn and to grow and to do stuff better. And if you're in an organization where you have limited ability to be creative, and when I say creative, I don't mean artsy, I mean use the root word of the word creative, to create. You want to create outcomes. You want to create solutions, and you're not allowed to either because you have a micromanager as a boss or because the culture of the company you're at doesn't allow you to create new things that would be more effective, and that's frustrating. That's a good sign that you've got some DNA in you that's entrepreneurial, that you should be looking at a place where you can potentially go create your own solution or your own outcome. And ultimately, if we shift into Infusionsoft, I could go through other stories, but that's ultimately what it was at Infusionsoft too. Granted, I was young and really brash and really raw when I was there, so I didn't handle myself very well. And I've come to grips with this. If you would have asked me a year after I left, I would have said it was all their fault. The reality is I could have handled it totally differently. But ultimately, at the heart of it, even if I had handled it differently, at the heart of it, there was a core DNA butting heads because I was, and not me and the company, it was me and myself. I was, at heart, somebody that wanted to go create and have the freedom to create solutions. And I was in an organization where I was an employee, and I didn't have 100% freedom. So that if I'm looking back and I look at the things that I can see retroactively that might lend itself to somebody else starting to get a feel for whether they have that entrepreneurial DNA, it's do you have a drive to create? Do you see things that just don't make sense and you see natural opportunities to fix it and you're strongly inclined to do it but you can't and it's frustrating? Like those are the types of things that I would look at because that's going to be a strong indication. Like entrepreneurialism is about creation, making things, taking nothing and turning it into something that is of value. You create value. That's what it's about. So if that's what you're doing in the role that you're in and you're starting to run into limitations, then there may be an opportunity to go be an entrepreneur, or you may just go within your organization and say, look, I want more freedom to create stuff. Like I need this in order for me to operate at my maximum. So is that kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah. Just those signs, because there's a lot of people out there that deep down might have that kind of passion, or they might ask this question, well, how do I know that this is right? I've kind of got this passion, but how do I know if this is really for me? Yeah, no, so I think that's awesome, man. So then you talked about the next 18 months operating from a place of fear, which is probably awesome, right? Because then it makes you have no choice but to get out there and just crush it on a whole new level. I've never met in my life or talked with or studied an entrepreneur that, that's uber successful that hadn't had those kind of crazy lows, and
Yeah, Yeah, you know what I tell my clients when they come through. I may have mentioned this when you're out here, but what I try and tell people when we start talking about that part of either my journey or their journey is, look, the fastest way to get smart is to run out of time or run out of money. And the reason why, this is the more impactful piece. The reason why is because then you can't afford to be stupid. And so when entrepreneurs get stuck, um, it's not because like the universe is colluding against them. It's because they're not following natural principles of success. Now, that's a hard thing to own up to as an entrepreneur, but it's true. Unless nobody else in your entire industry or in the entire world is being successful, then when you're not being successful, it has nothing like it's something that you need to figure out. And typically what happens is you're either holding on to or unwilling to reach out to something that you need to because you're being stupid. I'll tell you what, as soon as you run out of money or as soon as you run out of time, and I ran out of both, as soon as you run out of time, all of those fears that hold you back from the thing that you need to do, when I talk about this, I talk about it being like the first problem you have to solve. People like to avoid the first problem. They like to go to the second, third, fourth, or 100th problem of what should my logo look like? Who cares? Your logo's not going to put money on the table or money in the bank and food on the table. What's the first problem you have to solve? And as soon as you run out of time and money, you are forced with, well, what sucks worse? Not having money to provide for my wife and my kids, or doing this thing that scares me a little bit. And all of a sudden, doing the thing that scares me a little bit sucks less than not putting money on the table, so I'm willing to do it. And then guess what? Voila, we did 7 figures in 1 year. Crazy idea.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that like both fears are going to exist. It's not like you're superhuman and it's like, okay, grinding and doing all these cold calls. It's not fun for you. You just picked which sucks less and attacked it.
Yeah, and to put a more positive spin, I just read an article that Clint on our team shared about a guy that he talked about the myth of discipline, and he said, look, it's not about discipline. Let's just be honest, and it's a different take on it. He says it's not about discipline. It's about what do you love more. I know you get up at 3:30 every morning. I don't, and the reason why is because what happens for you when you get up at 3:30 and what you put yourself through and the stuff that you do provides an outcome that you love more than sleeping.
Right.
Right? So the question is just be honest with what you love. And the example he gave is, do you love six-pack abs or do you love donuts? Which one do you love more? And don't be ashamed of it. Like people walk through with fear comes this like with a shame. I'm ashamed of like, oh, well, I ate this donut. If you love it, just own up to it. And if you want to change who you are, great. But it's more about like focus on what you love. And it goes back to the same thing. Like there comes a time where what I loved more was providing for my family than shying away from something that was new to me. And once that happened, success started to come. So if you can shift your love to, or your passion or drive to the things that will produce success, then success will naturally start to follow. But as long as you live in that place of fear where it stops you from moving, you're screwed. It's like there's no other way around it.
Yeah, man. And then from there, so then you jumped into the consulting, which one-on-one, like you said, you're not around your team, you're not really creating, and one-on-one coaching, anybody that's done it, coaching consulting, dude, it's a grind. It can be a total burnout business. It's a grind, and transition from that to product sales, and then from there, you Sixth Division was created. So, and I know you talked about in 2011, like it was crazy, but for people to really get it, like what defined crazy? Because people might think, oh, a 12-hour day was crazy. I know they were more like 23-hour days for you, right? Like maybe a little 1-hour nap that you get a day in there.
Oh.
Like what did, like kind of just relive, like what did day look like in there? Because a lot of people get into business, and dude, it's not, they say all these businesses fail because it's undercapitalization. No, dude, it's probably because you weren't willing to take enough action. And I think people need to understand that it's like, look, entrepreneurship is really sacrificing a certain amount of your life so you can live like nobody else for the rest of your life. But if you're not willing to make those sacrifices, you're probably not going to get it. So what did that look like, dude? Like, what was a typical day from grinding, waking up, sleeping?
Well, so a typical day wouldn't capture it. I'll kind of give you a typical month because it was the compounding effect that was hellacious that first year. And let me I got to give some backdrop on what I talked about the makeover. Let me explain what this is. So we have this offering. It's our flagship offering called the 2-day makeover. Clients come out and they get one of our coaches one-on-one for 2 days, and we're going to go in and put systems automation into your business to really get your business running like clockwork. That's what we build. That is an extremely intensive process for a coach. It is for a client as well, but for a coach too. Like you're on the whole time. We take our clients to dinner in between those 2 nights. And like you're on the whole time, so you don't have like and unless anyone's been in that situation where they're presenting for a long, like think of when, for anyone that's ever presented or had to give a talk or whatever, when you're the center of attention of even one person or multiple people for an extended period of time, you're drained afterwards because it takes a tremendous amount of emotional energy. Now, take that and run it over the course of 2 days, and you've got an entrepreneur who's coming to you to get their business in line so they can make money, and you add that pressure on top of it. So that's what a makeover looks like. It's we get to the office, and now we've got a systematic process that makes that more manageable. Back then, we were literally just saying, we didn't say this literally, but figuratively, we were basically saying, we're smarter than everybody else because we've done this longer, come work with us. So we were making stuff up on the fly. Now we've got like a system and a process. So add that on top of the emotional stress of being an entrepreneur, providing for their family, on top of the fact that for 2 days straight, you're live. So we would get in Monday all of our clients pretty much came in on Mondays. We would get in Monday at about 7 or so, get all of our stuff together, kind of sync on who was coming out. There were 4 or 5 of us that were doing this. We had about 4 or 5 to 6 businesses, depending on the week, that would come out. They would get here at 8. We would start at 8 o'clock, and from 8 until noon, we would do like a preliminary planning session. Then from noon to 1, we'd do lunch, and we'd get together and we'd share what we were going to work on for that time. And then from 1 to 5, we'd start to build. Now, keep in mind, we're building something. We're smart, but really this building is like a figured-out process. So we'd go from 1 to like 5 or 6. Then we would take everybody to dinner, and we'd go to dinner from 6:30 or whatever. We'd go home at like 8 or 9. And then typically what we would do is we would go finish, like we're like, okay, I'm about halfway through. I've got a bunch of stuff I want to get done for this client. So I would stay up consistently late until 10:30 or 11 building stuff for the client so I could come back in the next day, get a jump start on where we were. I wanted to make sure that the person left happy. Then we come back in. We started at 8 o'clock the next day, and we went all the way through until 5 or 6. So that's Monday, Tuesday. Unless you've presented and can appreciate the weight, like the emotional weight that takes, at the end of 2 days, as a coach, you're fried. Like emotionally, like mentally, it's like I need to go home and I just need to sit on the couch. I just need to watch something that will not require my brain to process at all. Okay, so that's what happened. So then Wednesday we roll in, and what happened between Monday and Tuesday is you got emails from other clients or from prospects that want to talk to you about buying a makeover, or from people that want to talk to you about having you come sponsor their event, or something is broken on the website, or you've got something in your business you need to set up. You've got QuickBooks to go update. So now you come back in, and it's literally a firestorm on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've got like 3 phone calls set up to take sales calls on Wednesday. In between everything else I'm doing, I got another 4 on Thursday. I got some on Friday. So you're talking like up at 5. So what I would do is I'd get up like 5 or 6. I'd work for a couple hours, get the kids up. I wanted to be home at least a little bit. I get the kids up, and I'm partially there at least for 30, 45 minutes. I hit the office. I'm at the office till 5:30. I get home about 6. Put the kids down. I'm not really paying attention, and by 9 o'clock, I'm back at it till midnight or whatever. And then that whole thing starts again the next week. And then it starts again the next week. And so you consider, take like April 1st to about September 15th. That happened every single week, and there were 2 times in that period where we had Monday, Tuesday makeover, Wednesday, and then a makeover Thursday, Friday. And we weren't good at that point of saying, hey, we do what we do in the 2 days, and when you leave, you're done. So over time, what compounded is the clients would come back and say, hey, and then I need this. And we hadn't figured out how to set the expectation to say no. So we would do it. So our makeovers were 2 days plus about another 2 days spread out over the next 6 weeks. Well, compounding interest works in your favor if you're saving money. It'll kill you when you're compounding work on top of doing new makeovers that are compounding new work. So it was, right, and then you mix in an event. And I got to do a makeover Monday, Tuesday, kind of catch up on Wednesday, fly out Wednesday night. I go to an event Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I come home. Like it was just, draining is the only word that I can think to describe it.
Yeah, and it's and I'm sure there's even more to what you just described, because it's, like you had mentioned, you're returning emails. And it's not just returning emails. Like you're having to get on the phone and sell these new customers on coming out. So you're having to work those sales, follow up, put out new ads, little things like changing the garbage, buying equipment, clean it. People don't get that. Like in the beginning, dude, you're everything. You're your bookkeeper, you're your janitor, you're your IT person. Like you are every single hat.
Yep.
Thank you for listening. Do not forget to follow me on Facebook, Joshua Smith GSD, on Twitter @Joshua Smith GSD, Instagram Joshua Smith GSD. Make sure to also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Type in Joshua Smith, and I'm the good-looking cat at the top. If you haven't already, go to www.joshuasmithgsd.com and subscribe to our email list. You'll get these interviews sent to you via email, along with my blog, videos, updates, and all that other fun shit. As always, make sure you're taking action. Take all this golden information that you're getting delivered here and make sure you're applying it. Information without implementation is the start of delusion. So implement. Take massive levels of action, get your hustle on, get into GSD mode, and go dominate. Peace out, guys, and see you next time.